Boy, that smells great. Wow, hey, didn't see you there. It's Will with Farrington Nature Link. We're out here, beautiful Lincoln, Massachusetts, and might look around and see there's a little bit of water on the trees. Sky's kind of gray, and I'll tell you, it's raining pretty hard. But we're gonna be moving today. Got our proper equipment on, stay nice and dry. Farrington Nature Link is a nonprofit based in Lincoln, Massachusetts. We're on our property right here to talk today about wildflowers. But what does Farrington Nature Link do? We focus on helping low-income youth from urban communities get outdoors, form meaningful connections with nature, with an emphasis on health and wellness. You might ask yourself, Will, what does getting outside have to do with health and wellness? Well, I'll tell you. Getting outside helps improve your mood by staving off anxiety and depression, or helping with the symptoms of those. It just feels good, even on a rainy day like today. It's kind of special being out here and sharing time with my friend Meg, 6 feet apart, of course. Meg is filming right over there. Sarah's the host, so if you have questions, comments, ideas you want to share at any point, you can just type them into the chat, and Sarah will relay them to my ears, and then I'll relay that to my mouth straight to you. Speaking of friends, Meg and I are going to be maintaining at least 6 feet of social distancing during the filming today for health and safety reasons. Other health and safety concerns, you got to think about the things that we're wearing. It's a rainy day, so I got my waterproof hiking boots on. I got my rain pants on, got my rain jacket, and underneath this I have a couple sweaters. I wish I brought gloves because my fingertips are cold, but it's too late now. What are you going to do? Let's go explore some things we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about wildflowers. Wildflowers. If you look down here, we got a couple. You might be able to see them. Maybe I'll get out of your way so you can check out the colors of those ones and the shapes. What do you see here? I am an amateur wildflower interpreter. I don't have a lot of experience with wildflowers, and part of the beauty of that is that we're going to be learning together today about what we're going to be seeing. But these right here, Meg pointed out to me, are called myrtles. Myrtles. These ones have 5 petals. Petals are the little parts of the flower arranged in a radial fashion. That means they go in a circle. And these ones are kind of silvery purple with some white on the inside right in there. And we love petals. People enjoy them for the smell, for how they look, how they feel. But other sorts of animals, especially pollinators, enjoy them too. We're going to be learning a little bit about that later when we go check out our beehives. But right now, let's get up close and personal with this flower and give it a whiff. I know you guys can't smell it because, as Chris pointed out in our video earlier today, you guys have only one of your senses available for this, sight. Here I can smell, touch, listen, taste, and see things. So I'll tell you a little bit about that flower. I think it smells kind of woody, smells like wood, almost a little bit of citrus, like a lime smell, and it's a little sweet. Ooh, it's cold. What does it feel like? Well, it's cold and wet right now, but it's really soft, so I'm being really delicate with it. And you guys can tell what it looks like. It has nice silvery purple leaves. I'm not going to taste it because unless you know something is edible, and not everything outdoors is, you shouldn't eat it. But I bet we'll find some dandelions later, and I'll put one of those bad boys in my mouth and tell you what it tastes like. I have a couple other tools with me today in my pocket here. Let's see. I have a little glass collecting jar because I think we might collect some flowers while we're outside. Maybe identify them, and then we can learn how to press them when you're at home. We can dry them out. And I have a little magnifying glass. And boy, Meg is looking big right now through that thing. But I brought the magnifying glass out here, so when I look at a flower, I can examine it a little bit more closely. I'm going to pluck one of these myrtles here. I'm only going to take one, because imagine if you take too many, the whole system of plants could die. And I feel bad even just taking one. I like to think that plants have feelings too, and it's not really fair. But for the sake of art, we're going to just take one today. Maybe we'll say thank you to the plant when we take it. Thank you. I'm going to put this in our little collecting jar so we can learn a little bit about pressing flowers in a minute. There she goes. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, let's move on to another flower. Whoa, feeling good. Let's see. What else did we see out here? Oh yeah, you're splitting wood here. There's all these wood chunks everywhere. And that provides a really good habitat for a bunch of other sort of critters, especially worms and insects that like to break that stuff down. But right alongside, that's a whole other story. Right alongside it, we have something else here. And Meg, you know what I think I'm gonna do? I think I'm gonna pluck one of these guys and I'm gonna bring it right over to that stump so you can get up close and personal with it. Beautiful. I have no idea what these flowers are, but we have a tool that we can use to learn a little bit more about them in a second. Check that out. Check that out. What colors do you see? Is it big? Is it small? If I put my finger next to it for comparison, what do you think? Really tiny little petals. They're beautiful color of purple. I have this tool right here in my bag. That's right, folks. It's time for a little bit of what's in my bag. And the tool I brought outside today is a book called Wildflowers of New England. And when we sit down to press these flowers, we're going to take a little bit of time to search through here and see if we can discover what we're dealing with and learn more about flowers because we're learning together. Let's put it in here. Smell. Doesn't really smell like much. But what it does smell like, it's a little sweet, a little tangy, and it smells like rain. Do you guys think rain has a smell? I think that's a great question. Well, it's water, but when rain lands on grass, it actually I'm all mealy mouth. It actually releases a chemical out of the grass that produces that after rain smell. When you go outside after it's rained, you'll smell that scent. And I wish I could remind you what it's called, or tell you, but I forgot. Okay, we're heading on down to the garden right now, and this at Farrington during the summertime is where we do a lot of edible plant eating. We get to explore vegetables and growing. We get to touch the dirt and feel it in our fingers. It's a great time. Unfortunately, it's raining right now, and we're under quarantine, so there won't be much gardening going on for the foreseeable future. But I saw something right by your foot over here, actually, Meg. You might recognize this flower. Let's see. Take my magnifying glass to get a better, closer look and peel apart some of the leaves. It's bright yellow inside. There's a lot of petals. But Meg, come on down so you can get a closer look. Right now it's cold outside and it's raining, so that petals, all of them are standing up and the flower is closed up. But if you imagine it was warm and sunny outside, all those petals would open and flatten out and you'd see a big dandelion. A big dandelion. Dandelions are one of the coolest flowers. People often think that they're weeds. What a weed is a plant that you don't want growing. It takes up space. It might kill grass. It might take nutrients away from other plants that you want growing. But I think dandelion is a pretty neat weed. I'll tell you why. You can eat them. You can eat pretty much every part of the dandelion. You can eat the flowers like that. Oh, that's good. I'm going to grab another. So next time you have a bunch of dandelions in your yard, don't just cut them or spray them. Try eating them. You can eat the flower petals like I'm doing. You can eat the stems. The stems are the part the flower petals are attached to. I think the leaves are really good in a salad.
What does it taste like?
I'm trying to think of the flavor to describe it. It's bitter. It's a little bitter on the aftertaste. That's what's in my mouth right now is a little bitterness. The beginning is it's a little sweet. Yeah. Doesn't really taste like anything else. It's its own flavor for sure. But let's keep walking. Come on. Enough of the chit chat and the dilly dallying. Oh, here we go, Meg. Look at this. It's a little bit of what we saw earlier. Those little tiny purple flowers, whatever they are. If you know, comment it in, and I'll check it in my book to double check it. But we'll check that out a little bit. Beautiful. My favorite part about this flower actually is the leaves. They're these little red-tipped, wide, brimmy leaves with little tiny, soft serrated edges. Those are just beautiful. Those are just beautiful. If we make our way on down the hill here, Meg, I just saw something else you might find interesting. I saw something else. Here we go. Look at this. This is a different flower from one we were observing earlier, and I'm going to pluck one to add it to our jar. But here, let me put it on the grass for you to check it out. There we go. What do you think that might be? It has, I think, 5 petals in a radial fashion. We already saw myrtles, and it looks similar to myrtles, but that is probably a violet. Again, I'm no flower pro. I'm an amateur. But using my limited floral knowledge, I'd say that's a violet. They're really common. You see them all over Massachusetts, and there's all sorts of different types of violets. I don't know how many there are, but in this book I've been looking at alone, there's like 20 different types of violets. So that to me looks like one of them. Oh, what's
Hey,
this guy right
Sarah,
here?
I have a question about violets.
Yeah, Sarah, what's up?
So I have some violets that grow in front of my house, but I've seen that on that same grass where they grow, sometimes people throw out cigarette butts and dogs poop
Oh,
stuff. Can I eat those, or is it better to eat ones in an area that's clean, like where you are?
Sarah, I'm sorry to hear that about the littering. That's really unfair to do that to other people's shared environment. You know, I wouldn't eat those ones just because if there's trash around, some of the pieces of trash might be getting into the soil, into the dirt. And because the flowers are growing in the dirt, they might have some of that inside of them also. So it might not be the healthiest to eat. And I'm not even sure if violets are edible. But Sarah, if you know, you should put that in there.
I heard they're edible.
They
One
are?
time last year, I ate some at Farrington. They were really good.
Oh, really? Okay, interesting. Well, just because you eat something and it tastes really good doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthy for you. So I might double check that in online or in a book. But I take your word for it. You're an outdoor professional. Um, let's see here. A little bit more flowers along the outside here. What do you guys think? Do you think these are the same ones that we were seeing earlier? I think they're a little different. These to me look like they're just like the violets we saw earlier. Just like the violets we saw earlier. And then you can see the little purple flowers that are popping up everywhere, those beautiful leaves. Those beautiful leaves. Man, those are so pretty. All right, let's keep journeying forth. Let's keep journeying forth. Yeah, Sarah, that got me thinking about taking care of the environment. When people are walking around and they drop a cigarette butt on the ground, or a piece of wrapper from their kashi bar, or like I don't know, I just accidentally drop like a plastic bag or any sort of trash on the ground. That sort of stuff really is bad for the environment, because it might get bad things into the dirt. It might get carried out to the ocean, and an animal might chew on it. Maybe a pigeon swoops down, thinks it's a piece of food, and chokes. And it's also just kind of a bummer when you walk around and you see evidence of people all over the place. Hey, Meg, I saw you eyeing this guy right over here. This little sign I made a while ago says, "Beware, active bees." Active bees. On a day like today, there wouldn't really be much action. Bees really like warm, sunny days. And our hives right back there are actually abandoned. There's no bees living there anymore. But even if there was, it's a good time to go check it out. Let's go for a little walk on over. Also, the other day, a tree came down and crushed our beehive. Well, it didn't crush it. Knocked over our beehive. And, if I was a bee and all my hive got tipped over on side, I might leave also. Bees leave their hives for a number of reasons. They might leave for a lack of foraging. That means there's not enough flowers around for them to get pollen from. But I feel like we've seen all sorts of flowers, and there's probably enough of that. They might leave because of an infestation of mites, which are little bugs that like to eat their larvae and honey. I don't know if this one had a mite infestation, but they might also leave a hive if there's an infestation of ants. And I know we did have an ant problem, so maybe that was part of the reason why they decided to go. But I got a special surprise for you guys. One of my favorite things to do at Farrington is on a sunny day, come out here, and there's all these bees swarming around you and flying around you, but they're not actually dangerous so long as you treat them with respect. They don't want to sting you. It's kind of a last resort. So we'd come over here, we'd kind of wade through the bees that would be flying around, maybe hanging out on the flowers and the grass. We'd poke open this little cabinet here. What do you see inside? I don't want to get too into bees because we got an episode about bees coming up soon. But I figured they're an important thing to talk about when we talk about flowers. And we'll find out soon. Find out why soon. What are these? Do you see the combs in there? That's where the bees store all their honey. Store all their honey in there. And the honey comes from pollen. You hear some bad things about pollen because it does give people allergies. Pollen drifting through the air, pollen making you sneeze. But pollen is the life of bee colonies, and it is the reproductive tool of flowers. All flowers produce pollen, which, if you have your little flowers right here, on the inside of the petals, that's where the pollen is produced, and bees love to fly in there, land in there, and some pollen gets stuck to their little legs, into their hairy abdomen, and then they'll fly back to the hive and deposit that pollen inside here. But on the way, they're going to stop at all sorts of other plants, other flowers, and they're going to touch on those and drop pieces of pollen here, pieces of pollen there, and that's how the plants reproduce. But also means that there's a delicious little treat inside. As the pollen sits inside the hive, it gets mixed in with bee saliva and starts to break down, and it creates this amazing substance called honey. Honey. This honey's, I don't know if I can open it. Yeah, I can. This honey's pretty old, but the cool thing about honey is that it never goes bad. They found honey in King Tut's tomb that he was buried with, and it's still edible today. It just crystallized. So a little bit right on there. I'm going to try it out. I'll tell you what it tastes like. Have you ever had honey? Oh, man. I'm not going to stick it back in there and double dip, but I want to. That is delicious. Honey is sweet. It can be kind of grainy. Oh my God, it's so good. And it's amazing that it comes from flowers and through bees transforming the pollen, the little yellow and green seeds that flowers have, into honey. You get this amazing treat. That's so cool. I wish there were still bees in here so we could hang out with them, but what are you going to do? What are we doing on time? Oh, we got time. Okay. Come on over here, Meg. I got another flower for you. I came out here yesterday to do a little foraging, a little flower reconnaissance, kind of see what was going on. And I didn't have my flower eyes on. I came outside and I was looking around. I didn't really see any wildflowers. I was just so distracted by all the other things I was seeing and hearing, the birds, the wind, the sunshine on my body. But after a couple minutes, I started kind of getting my flower hat on. I started seeing, oh, there's another dandelion. Excuse me, sorry. I'm really hungry. Haven't had lunch yet, so got stuck up. Either way, back to the story. Came outside, I didn't really have my flower hat on, and I wasn't seeing much, but over time, I started to kind of hone it, and I found my first wildflower. It was actually over there behind the beehive. It was a violet. I got so excited. I was kind of demoralized. I'd been out here for like 20 minutes. Not a single wildflower. And I started seeing them everywhere. And just on our walk today, I've probably gone like 20 yards and we've seen all sorts of different things. But I got another one for you down here, Meg. Come on down. Come on down. That's what we saw earlier. We have a beautiful wildflower right around here. Those tiny little white wildflowers. Tiny little white wildflowers. You know, I tried to identify them, and I think they're called shepherd's bane or shepherd's mane or something like that. But we'll get to the book in just a minute, see if we can get some more in-depth exploration of what these flowers are like. I can't smell much, but they are really small. So I'm gonna cut myself a little slack. But man, it just smells good outside today anyways. Clean air. The dirt smells really good right now. There's so much of it in the mud, and a little bit of a swamp in the distance. There's a swamp back behind us over there. There's some swamps out there and a swamp in that direction too. Man, it's just nice. It's a nice day to be outside. Okay, let's put this in here. And then let's get a pressing. Sarah, how are you doing? Do you have any questions?
Oh man, I'm loving this video, Will. My question is, I see in the background, kind of like behind the other fence, some thorny looking bushes. What are those exactly?
Sarah, that's a great question. Yeah, if we look out over here, so Meg, Sarah's saying she sees some thorny looking bushes out over here. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. You can see this patch used to be a garden. That's why there's the fence around it. But it got really overgrown and it was taken over by a delicious fruit or berry. Blackberries, that is. Out here, you know, you come out here in the summertime and it's just like a treasure trove of blackberries. It's incredibly delicious and super yummy. There's a couple other things going on around here. You'll see some other vines intertwined with the blackberries, and these red berries on this vine, those are bittersweet. It's a sign of bittersweet. This is a little off topic. It's not a wildflower, but bittersweet's an invasive species, which means that it isn't native to New England, and it likes to take over other plants. Bittersweet's really nasty. It climbs around this one. You should get a great shot of that, Meg. You'll see it wrapping around the branches of other plants, and what it's doing is it's choking it. It's taking away the nutrients from the soil. It's blocking off its access to sunlight, and over time, bittersweet will kill plants, even gigantic trees. There's also, I believe, some Virginia creeper out here. Here's a great example of a blackberry bush. This one got cracked in half, but it's a nice one to examine all the big thorns on it. Here, you're really close to that side, Mike. Do you see those thorns? If you touch those, it's going to give you quite the shock. Not as much of the shock of the electric fence I touched yesterday by accident, though. Just kidding. Well, actually, no, I'm not. But I was walking with Chris, and there's some alpacas, and I got too close to the fence, and I got a little zapped. But that's life, you know? Sometimes you get excited, and sometimes it bites back. Let's keep going. Yeah, while we're walking here, see if you notice any other wildflowers. I'll keep my eyes peeled too, and keep my magnifying glass handy. I'm seeing a lot of those little purple ones we saw earlier. Gosh, I wish I knew what those were. The leaves are just so darn pretty. All right, here's some more of the white one we saw earlier. That's a really pretty one. Oh, this is kind of cool. Entirely unrelated. I'll leave this up here for you to check out, Meg. That's what I believe is a hickory nutshell, and there's a tiny slug inside of it. That's really cool. I just saw the shell on the ground. I was going to show you guys. So shagbark hickory is a tree that grows around here, and it releases these nuts, hickory nuts, that crack into, I think, like 4 different little pieces like that, maybe more, maybe less. Sarah might know. She might be able to fill in the details. And I just wanted to show you guys that, but I picked it up and there's a tiny little slug inside. That's a little natural miracle right there. Man, I want some more of that honey. That was so good. Ooh. Hey, let's go on inside the garden. You know, in the summertime, we have cucumbers, tomatoes. Oh, nasturtiums. Nasturtiums are not wild, but edible flower that you can grow really easily. They take over spaces really well. They don't need that much to be happy, but they're delicious, sweet, a little spicy, a little peppery, cool plant. We grow mint in here, beans, lemon cucumbers, kale, lettuce, pumpkins, squash, zucchini. That's a great time. Ah, well, evidence of some squirrel action right there. See some acorn chunks where they were chowing down on top of that log. Squirrels love to find, if you watched Chris's video earlier today, we found some great squirrel evidence. They love to find places to sit on top of to eat on. Oh, man, guys, I'll tell you, I'm sore. I've been walking a lot recently. Let's see here. Wildflowers of New England. This is Ted Elliman in the New England Wildflower Society. I'm no pro, again, but I've been checking out a couple different wildflower books, and I really like this one because you can learn all about how wildflowers work in the beginning, and then there are color-coded sections. So it's easy to try and find what you're looking for. All right, let's see here. Let's do our first wildflower. And, you know, we might only have time to do one. So let's do one that we already know. Just keep it fast. This is the myrtle. I'm going to put it right here for you guys to check out real quick. I think the leaves are so beautiful also, in addition to the petals. What a great plant. So pretty. Oh man, it's going to be hard to do this. My fingers are chilly. Let's see here. So first thing we want to do is if we find a wildflower and we don't know what it is, we want to identify it. And different books have different strategies of doing this, but once libraries open back up, I really recommend checking them out. Just go to the library and ask maybe the librarian what book they like, and they might point you in a good direction, or at least give you some recommendations. But what we're going to be looking for, that one has 5 petals. So we want to find our blue wildflowers with 5 petals. That's how this book is organized. 5 radial petals. You know, it also looks kind of similar to this lesser periwinkle. Oh, that's what it is! Or creeping myrtle. Meg, you are so right all along. Well, that's amazing. This flower has 2 names. Lesser periwinkle. I don't know if it's lesser. I think it's still a great periwinkle. Or a creeping myrtle. And what does it say about it? It says early to mid-spring is when it blooms. It can be 3 feet long and 4 to 8 inches high. It's a creeping perennial. Creeping means that crawls along the ground. And then a perennial, oh man, I always have a tough time. We get confused between annual and perennial. Sarah, help me out. Sarah, help me out. What's the difference between annual and perennial?
I got you, Will. I think annual means it's only going to grow for 1 year, and perennial
that's right, and then
means it's gonna
die.
come back the next year after winter.
Dude, you're a lifesaver. Thanks. And it likes to grow in woodlands, fields, and roadsides. Just to recap what Sarah just said, this is a perennial flower, which means it comes back each year without having to plant it again. And an annual flower grows for 1 year and then it dies before it has to be reseeded, planted again. We're going to learn really quick, we only got a couple minutes, about pressing flowers. So what this is going to do is it's going to take that flower, it's going to press it in a book to flatten it out. It's going to dry it out over time. So the only things you really need are a book and a piece of paper. Some people like parchment paper. I know some people use just scrap paper, but we're going to use just blank white printer paper. Doesn't really matter what kind you use, again, or whatever you have lying around. But this is good because it's flat, so it won't leave an impression on the flower. And it doesn't have any dye on it like black or blue ink, so it won't stain the flower. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay our flower how we kind of want to press it right in there. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit just with my fingers to get it set up. I'm going to fold a piece of paper over it, get it nice and flat. And then I'm just going to tuck it in the middle of this book. And you probably want to do this inside your home so you can just leave it. Then you're going to stack a couple heavy things on top of it. Maybe some seashells if you got them. Just to make it aesthetic, you know, because you're going to be sitting looking at it for a couple weeks. And then you let that bad boy sit in there for a couple weeks, and slowly all the water inside that flower is going to get squeezed out into the paper. It's going to get really flat and dry. In a few weeks' time, you can take some tweezers and pluck it out of there really gently. Then you can do all sorts of things with it. Put it on a card, give it to your mom. I don't know, make some art for some friends. Really whatever. All right, folks, that's all I got today. If you have any questions about wildflowers, feel free to comment them onto the Zoom YouTube video. or if you're right here, throw them in the chat and I'll try and answer them now or later. But that's it. I hope you had fun. I did. Meg, thanks for filming. Sarah, thanks for helping out. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Catch you later. Bye.